Alright, so this is a little overview of what vertex colors are. So vertex colors are like coloring the object that you have, but instead of having to UV unwrap everything and then texture paint it, you draw with the points of your model. So if we make a new material here, and we get into this like vertex. If you go to the shading tab, we want to add a new node here. So I'm doing Shift A to add, and then I'm searching for color attribute. This used to be named vertex colors, but they changed it, so now it's called color attribute. And then we can just plug this color into the base, and it should turn black like this. So now if we go back in here and go to the drop down, we can see that there's a vertex paint option here, and this should turn the model back to white. And then now it's kind of like painting like you normally would. So let's say I have red here, and I want to paint this corner, and you can see here that there's this gradient, and that's because the vertex colors automatically smooth the colors. So if we color this whole side, we can see now it's flat, and then this has a little gradient towards the other sides. And so this is very useful if you are making like solid color cartoony things, especially if it's like you want to only use vertex colors, say if you want to use it for light. Getting rid of the BSDF shader here, this now uses only the vertex colors. So we can do something like painting on shadows. Let's say I want the bottom a little bit darker. And that you see that looks three-dimensional even though there's no actual lights. Whereas if we filled the whole thing in, and there I did Control X to set the vertex colors, you see we can't see any of the edges here, and that's why you would want to fill some in like this. Blender also comes with some other tools. You can see there's the blur, average, and smear. Let's add some more geometry to this to get some more control. So you see that there's this line in here now because now it's transitioning 2 steps. And if we don't want that, we could just blur it. But we could also do things like smear, which kind of drags the color. And it's a little bit finicky. It works a little bit better with higher poly models, just because you don't get the harsh edges. But you also got to be a little bit careful, because it is following these edges. If we move these, we are also moving the shape of our colors, which I mean would it would do that for normal texture painting. Another thing we have to consider is you see this gradient here. It follows. It already breaks it up into triangles. So if we say we change the triangle direction, that also changes how that color looks. So I just made this little head creature for a test, and so let's try to use vertex colors to paint this. So I'm going to add the material that we added before, and if we go to vertex paint, it should turn white again. And so let's say this is a blue creature. So do Control X to fill in everything. And maybe I want the underside a little bit darker to give it some three-dimensionality. And also this works with symmetry tools as well. Let's make the underside a little darker, maybe the underside of the ears. It's helpful to have wireframe on sometimes as well. especially if you're viewing it flat. Maybe I want this crease to be a little bit darker. And so then we can come in and smooth these a little bit so the shadows are a little softer, it doesn't have those harsh edges. You can see some three-dimensionality to it, especially with here. Now you can see that line breaking up the ear and the face. Might need a little bit more though. So something like that. You can also come here to the mask settings, and you can start clicking on some faces here. Let's say I wanted these to be a nose, so I want this to be pretty dark, close to black. And since I have this as a mask, I can paint this and have it have a very harsh edge. Whereas if I didn't have the mask, trying to paint that, it would automatically blend it. See the difference? So that's something that you can use to your advantage, but it's something you also have to consider when painting. We can also, let's say we want to select around this, because all of these would be, well, maybe not these ones. All of these would be the affected vertices, and we can kind of push that in, and that's another way you could get that same effect. So another thing you can do is combine vertex colors as layers. So say like I didn't know what color I wanted this dog to be, and I added a little bit more geometry so I can get some more colors out of it. And so say let's do this whole thing again, but this time I am going to use just black and white. And so let's go over here to the back, make that a little bit darker, maybe the underside of the mouth, and again the nose. I'm going to come back in and clean this up, but let's just rough in the colors so far. And the blur tool is always very helpful, and I use it very often, especially when painting with vertex colors. Gives everything a nice rounded look. And we could probably leave it there for now, but we can see that we get some definition here. Maybe I'll just paint this nose. Alright, so it's looking pretty good. If we go to shading here, our default, usually it says either col or attribute, and so we can plug that in here. But if you go to data and attributes, sorry, color attributes, you can see here attribute, attribute. So that's what this current color is. Let's rename this to shade and add another one. And this is going to be face color and bite color. And we could say this is our base color. So now, oops, I need to rename this to shade. So now we can add another color attribute, and this would be our base color. So let's toggle this on so we can look at it. Color attributes, make sure this is selected. It looks like these are both the same as of right now. So let's come in here and test this by making this whole thing green. Oh, and we can see that's not working because I actually did not plug this in here. So again, we can select everything, make this green, and now we can see that if we toggle, well, if we switch between these, we can see one is the shade and one is the color. So what we want to do is add a mix shader, no, sorry, because we want to multiply this. So this should be a mix RGB. Or I could just probably type multiply. Yeah, mix color, multiply. Alright, so we're gonna add our base color and our shade, put that into the output, and with multiply, we can see that now we get a shade with our base color, and we can influence how much of that shade we want. Factor of 1 actually looks a lot better, so we're going to keep it like that. And so now, the toggle that I was trying to do does not work, but that's how you switch between editing which one. So say I wanted to change the shade, I have to have shade selected and visible. Let's go to Vertex Paint and say I wanted the nose a little, I guess right here, say I wanted that a little bit shader. We can do that. And that does not affect the base color until we go to the base color, turn that on, and let's say I wanted the top of the head to be blue. Now I'm painting blue, and that doesn't affect the shade, it only affects the base color. And so something that you can do additionally is we can go and add textures to this. So if I say I wanted this image here for an eye. Where is that? Oops, okay. So say I wanted this image here for an eye. I drag that in as an image, so now I have to add that as a material. An eye. Base color, image texture, and change that to the eye. Go to shading and make sure the alpha is transparent. Now we could do something like this, where we have the image floating above, and that's how we can get our texture here. Just gotta fiddle with it a little bit. This has its own set of, pros and cons. You could place these anywhere, and it doesn't matter where they are. But sometimes you could see it like floating if you don't put it correctly. So sometimes what I like to do is, let's delete these. So I don't want to UV unwrap this entire model, but I want to add eyes to it. So let's take these here and just unwrap these. So unwrap angle based. Let's make sure these are lined up. So I can rotate this. And actually, I want these mirrored, so I'm going to stack these on top of each other. And I can have this fill up the entire texture space, because we are just adding the eye. So for this here, the easiest way to do it is to make another material and make sure everything else has that original material. So this one would be the Vertex colors plus the eye. And let's have these assigned as that. So we go back to shading. We have, we can put back the original BSDF shader. That does work here. Was it diffuse? I think it was. No, but anyway. This does work in other shaders. Is principled, that's what it was. And then it would look more normal, like how you're used to seeing it. Oh, you can kind of see there with the reflections and roughness and all that, make it glossy. So, working on just the eye shader, let's come here and add an image, and this will be our eye. Now we can add another multiply here, and I believe this is the correct setup. Yep, and see the eye is now on top of here. It would be different depending on if you have more colors in your texture, but this is the basic way to add that onto there. And if we go to UV editing, since we just have these selected, let me change to material preview. Now we can, oops, select this too. We can rotate this, scale it a little bit. Let's change this to, oops, clip, so it cuts off at the edges. It's a little bit bigger. Say I wanted my eyes there. And yeah, that's how you add a texture to Vertex colors as well. Okay, so I gave this guy a body. It would say I wanted a image on his shirt, but I don't want it to be multiplied by the color. So let's come here, turn on the widgets. Let's unwrap this, let's say this entire part. And unwrap, make sure this is, so let's make this fill the texture space. Oops. There are better ways of doing this, but this is an easy way. Alright, that's good enough. So let's create another texture for this, because we don't want it affecting any of the others. So let's go into shading, and we are going to add, if I can find it, this image here. It's just like an X. Could come here, and now we have this as our color. So this is our color input. What we want to do is now add both of these into our output. So we're going to search for a mix shader and hook this up. We're going to use alpha as the factor for our mix. And we can see this is not what we want. We want this image here. So probably gonna have to swap these. There we go. Then everything else, except for what we want, because we don't really care about it. This could be on another material. So you could have like one plain vertex color and then one that's just the image. I don't really care about that, so I'm going to unwrap this, not care about it, and just put it somewhere that we don't see it. Yeah, and that's how to get a image slapped onto the text, the model. And you can see, if you look at it, it's not floating. It has its original color. But if we did want this to follow the color, we wouldn't use mix. We'd use another multiply. And this is what that would look like. So this would be good if you had a texture that was, say, clothes wrinkles, or something that you want to change the color. Let's see. So I have this image here that's of some folds. Let's hook this one up in here. And you can see here, now I have these folds. It doesn't look the best because this was for a different model. But yeah, if you change the base color, go into Vertex Paint, say I wanted this to be red instead. Then those folds will still follow the color because it's being multiplied. Whereas, come back in here and change it back to being layered on top. Then if we go to Vertex Paint, say I wanted this to be red, the image keeps its original color no matter what.